Honourable Liang Dalzell.
Chairman, I couldn't agree more with my colleague when he says that the need to focus on breaking down those silos is fundamentally important, which is why I'm pleased that this section deals with the whole of government approach that we so need. Now, if there's one place in New Zealand that needs a whole of government approach, it is Christchurch. And what we have had established there, I think, was a mistake in terms of the nature of the organisation. I think there's been a few comments lately about my views around the recovery effort, and I think I want to place it clearly on the record that the government has to be involved in Christchurch. It is so big, and that whole of government focus that's dealt with in this part of the legislation is fundamental to getting it right. But the model chosen for the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority, which sounds like it's an independent Crown entity or an autonomous Crown entity, in fact it's not. It's a government department. It has a direct line of reporting to the Minister. It has a statement of intent as set out in this part of the legislation as well, but not as a Crown entity, as a government department. It should have been a Crown entity. Everyone in Christchurch who has any understanding of the need for good governance in a recovery situation agrees that there needed to be a layer of governance between the Minister and the Chief Executive of SERA. But the real problem lies in the fact that there isn't the joined-up approach that we've been looking for. And I was speaking to an engineer recently, a geotechnical engineer, when I was up in Auckland, and I said to him, I've discovered the problem. I've discovered why things are not working in Christchurch, why we haven't got the joined-up approach. And I said it's here in the report of the Controller and Auditor General, the roles, responsibility and funding of public entities after the Canterbury earthquake, which of course is extremely relevant to Part 3 of this bill, because this is precisely the issue that is concerned. And I said, it's all on one page. And he actually couldn't believe me that I could have found the solution or the problem, the statement of the problem, in such graphic terms, until I went like this. That is what the Canterbury earthquake recovery looks like. And I think that everyone on that side of the House should take a very careful look at this document, a very careful look at it, because what it identifies is the whole range of public sector entities, private companies, Ngāi Tahu and Canterbury earthquake recovery tasks as they are undertaken by regional or local public entities, and whether they are part of the central government entity. So we've got the Treasury, the State Services Commission, the Ministry of Social Development, the New Zealand Transport Agency, the Tertiary Education Commission, the Ministry of Education, the schools and tertiary providers, Housing New Zealand Corporation, Ministry of Business and Innovation, Southern Response, Waimakariri District Council, Earthquake Commission. Ministry of Business and Innovation appears again because one was formerly the Ministry of Economic Development and one was formerly the Department of Building and Housing. Selwyn District Council, Department of Internal Affairs, Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu, Christchurch City Council, Canterbury District Health Board, Ministry of Health, Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, Environment Canterbury. No, if anything was screaming out for a joined-up approach, for a whole of government direction, then it is the Canterbury earthquake recovery. And in fact, when Canterbury earthquake recovery legislation was passed in this House, its intention was clear. It was to facilitate, to coordinate and to support or direct the recovery, anything that supported the recovery. And yet we haven't got anyone in charge. Still, there is no authority. Nobody stands in charge. So you've got the Minister of Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority not knowing what is happening over under the Minister of Building and Construction's watch, and we've ended up with a situation where the Christchurch City Council loses its accreditation on Monday next week, and the reason that they're losing it is because of a report that was prepared for the IANZ back in September last year. It was sent to to the City Council in October, and it was copied to Mr. Chairman, and it was copied to the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, MOBI. And the reason that well, I cannot for the life of me understand why there has been no connection made, no joining of the dots. And yes, there are lots of dotted lines, lots of squiggles, but guess what is completely missing from all of this? What is completely missing from all of this are people, the community, the people that live in Christchurch.
A member must bring this and relate it back to part 3.
Yes.
To use Canterbury as an example is fine, but you must bring it back to the content of part 3. The Honourable Leanne Gosnell.
Mr. Chairman, clause 162 states, the Minister of State Services and the Minister of Finance may jointly direct Crown entities to support a whole-of-government approach by complying with specified requirements for any of the following purposes: to improve, directly or indirectly, public services, to secure economies or efficiencies, to develop expertise and capability, to ensure business continuity, to manage risks to the government's financial position. Mr. Chairman, I would say that a direction to the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority, which is, okay, not a Crown entity, it's a government department, but should have been a Crown entity, could have actually brought this whole thing together. But given that it's not, there are many Crown entities that are operating in the Canterbury region, but they are not joined up. They haven't received a direction around the whole of government, or if they have, it isn't obvious to anyone. People who ring the Earthquake Commission, for example, EQC, they ring the EQC, they're told to ring the Fletchers, the EQR, and then they're told by them, no, it's really still an EQC matter. So they ring back EQC, and EQC says, well, ring the Christchurch City Council. So there's this lack of joined-up approach. The Ministry it's formerly the Department of Building and Housing, issued new guidelines partway through the process of the rebuild, and that has led to people having to go to the Department of Building and Housing, and the Ministry of Business and Innovation and Employment, MOBI, as it is now. And that's the problem, Mr. Chairman. We don't have this whole of government direction approach. And so it is important that we have this not just within government departments, because government departments themselves are operating in silos, but within government entities and where they connect in. So another government entity that is having a Crown entity that could really benefit from a whole of government direction is IANZ. That's New Zealand's accreditation body that enables an organisation to have confidence in its processes and provide assurance to customers and clients. It's part of the TAUART, the Testing Laboratory Registration Council. That's an autonomous Crown entity that was established way back in 1972. It has a really important role around accreditation. But now we've got a huge question mark over what buildings are safe and what buildings are not in Christchurch. They should be in there as part of a whole of government response to the issue, leading the issue alongside the Christchurch City Council and Sarah, and obviously now the Minister of Local Government will be in there today with a Crown manager. And I presume that will have a similar role, or maybe even a more extensive role than the Monitor's role, which is actually also provided for in Part 3 of the State Sector and Public Finance report bill, and what it's allowing itself to do is to assist the responsible minister to carry out his or her role. The trouble is that sometimes it isn't a responsible minister when there are many ministers who cut across, and I think we heard that from the Speaker the other day when I tried to get a snap debate on the issues that were occurring in Christchurch, and we couldn't get that responsible minister, and the failure to take any action wasn't regarded as a matter of recent occurrence because the failure to take action didn't form a ground for a snap debate. So that's the problem that we've got. So I hope that this legislation has been designed with addressing problems like we have in Christchurch in mind. I hope that it does, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it works in practice. But it really can't come soon enough for Christchurch. We've had enough of the silo thinking and the inability to bring everything together for the sake of Christchurch.
Members, we come to the vote on Part 3. First, we have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 262. The question is that the amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The next amendment in the name of Te Roa Flavel is set out on SOP number 259. The question is that the amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. The question now is that Part 3 is amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. We now move to the schedules. We have Schedule 1. We have the Minister's amendment as set out on SOP number 262. The question is that the Minister's amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Ayes have it.
Yep. Okay. Beg your pardon?
This is on 262.
Yes, this is Schedule 1 we're talking about. We're on Schedule 1, and I'm just putting the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP 262 relating to Schedule 1. No, order. Are you, is the member casting a vote for another party? Is that the story? Is that why?
I've got votes here for Supplementary Order Paper 262.
Well, look, we've had 262 has come up in parts 1, 2 and 3. We have dealt with those. We're now on the schedules.
I'll pass on that.
You'll pass on that? Right. The question is that the Minister's amendment... We're on Schedule 1. Order. Yeah. I'm putting the question on Schedule 1. And we have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 262. Are the members' amendments agreed to? Those in favour will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 1 is amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. We move to Schedule 1A. We have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 262. The question is that the Minister's amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 1A as amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. We move to Schedule 2. We have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 262. The question is that the amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 2 is amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. We now move to Schedule 3, and we have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 262. The question is that the Minister's amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 3 is amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. We move to Schedule 3A. We have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 262. The question is that the Minister's amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 3A is amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. We now move to Schedule 3B. We have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 262. The question is that the amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 3B as amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. We now move to Schedule 3C. We have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 262. The question is that the amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 3C as amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. We move to Schedule 4, and we have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 262. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 4 as amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Members, we now move to the clauses. And the question is that clauses 1 and 2 stand part. The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Chairman, this has been an important and lengthy debate on a framework piece of legislation.